GMGM, dear Aeon fam, this is Nur Star from the Aeon team, and today we would like to introduce you to our special World Cup desk, an autonomous World Cup desk that is gonna be managed by Aeon agents, and you're gonna be able to do a lot of stuff and while enjoying the World Cup. But first of all, for those who are not very familiar with Aeon yet, let me explain briefly what it is. So the Aeon framework is an autonomous agentic framework that allows you to run agents that live in your GitHub repository, and they act autonomously based on your instructions or on the cron schedules that you set. And then they also heal themselves, so they run autonomously. They run background tasks for you, and they send it to your Telegram bot. And you can do many things with them, as we have a skill catalog of almost 200 elaborated skills. And yeah, it is very easy to set up with your Cloud Code. You can use your Cloud Code, you can use your Cloud subscription, and it runs very smoothly. So you can go to our website aeon.fun and find out more about it, and follow the instructions on the GitHub repo to set it up. Just feed your agent with it, and he will set it up for you. And then you can choose the skills that you would like to set up, the skills that you want to fire every day, so that the result can be sent to your Telegram bot, and so on. But let me also tell you a bit more about another product of ours, which is miroshark, which is an intelligence engine that allows you to spawn swarms of Aeon agents that can run elaborated and complex simulations. As the same speech here, it also here, the same that I said about Aeon also applies in terms of setting the engine up. So you basically feed your agent, your Cloud Code agent, with the miroshark repo, and it will install it, and it will be ready to run simulations. The detail that you should know about is that simulation run 10 minutes per session, and they cost $1 that can be paid through the X402 agentic payment framework. So you need to have an agentic friendly wallet and pay for the entries through the X402 framework. But yeah, I'm gonna show you a bit more about it later on. So going back to our special website for the World Cup. So let's have a look at it. So as I said, it will be updated continuously by Aeon agents, and at the same time you can have a quick look about the groups, about the matches, the upcoming matches, and we also have groups, teams, matches. We have a players section with some of the most important players, and we'll keep our agents will keep an eye on their performance. So it will be very interesting to see. We're gonna also add more players in the coming days, and then there's also a simulations section where you can see the simulations that we would run using mirosharks, and we are also working on some more implementations about that. Maybe you will be able to run a simulation from simulations from the UX here, but so maybe you will be able to run simulations from this interface as well, but it's still early to say. So yeah, let's see. And then there's also a news feed about the World Cup. All these articles are written by our Aeon agents. So yeah, you can read them, you can learn more about the teams, the matches, and what the Aeon agents think about the World Cup developments. And yeah, so so the website is very new, so we are still working on it. We'll make it better by the day, and yeah, but so far so good. And at the same time, I would like to show you how miroshark simulations work for the World Cup, and some of the use cases that you could be playing using the miroshark for your World Cup related bets or like fun simulations. Obviously, this is not betting advice, so everything that I will be saying from now on should be taken, not very seriously. So first of all, I would like to show you a miroshark campaign that. First of all, I would like to show you a miroshark simulation that I ran yesterday, and basically, I ran a simulation about the possible performance of the Japanese football team. And as you can see, I'm a big fan of Japan in general, and I also think that the Japanese team could be one of the underdogs of this World Cup for different reasons. Obviously, it's unlikely that they will win, but I think they this year they have more chances than in the past, and sooner or later we'll have an Asian champion. So who knows? Maybe this could be the year. But let's analyze this report that was generated with the miroshark intelligence engine. I paid $1 using the Coinbase Agentic wallet. And so let's have a look at it. So I will read a bit and then commenting as well. I will read first, then I will also add some comments then, and we can analyze this report. So the Mitoma absence paradox, a God's eye view of the 2026 Samurai Blue campaign, a multi-agent simulation of how one injury reviewed. A multi-agent simulation of how one injury rewired the valuation logic around Japan's World Cup squad. So as you know, Mitoma is one of the strongest football players in the Japanese squad, and unfortunately got injured, so we will skip this World Cup. It's a big loss for Japan, but this report also takes the possible pros of this absence for the Japanese team, so let's dive deeper into it. So simulation finding, Kaoru Mitoma's injury acted as a scarcity catalyst, paradoxically inflating the market valuation of Kubo and Doan by forcing a tactical shift from individual brilliance to a high-volume, data-driven collective press that appealed more to European scouts than Mitoma's solo runs. So these agents also simulated possible outcomes in terms of market transfers for the individual Japanese players. So the report is divided into 4 sections: the scarcity premium, the ultra pragmatism, the sponsor's dilemma, the synthesis and implications. So the scarcity premium and the Kubo-Doan valuation divergence. So the simulation reveals a profound divergence between market-driven scarcity logic and the tactical reality of functional load following Kaoru Mitoma's injury. While external analysts predicted a simple value transfer from the absent Mitoma to the remaining stars, the actual dynamics suggests that Mitoma's absence acted as a catalyst for a structural transformation in how Takefusa Kubo and Ritsu Doan are valued by different stakeholders. The Kubo paradox, tactical indispensability versus market efficiency. Contrary to the naive expectation that Kubo's market value would skyrocket as the sole remaining creative hub, the simulation suggests a more complex recalibration of reliability. Data-driven agents such as Transfermarkt noted that while Kubo's tactical importance increased, his market efficiency potentially suffered due to the loss of Mitoma's spatial disruption. Transfermarkt says, European scouts view Kubo as a guaranteed starter rather than a high-ceiling wildcard when Mitoma is present. Without the spatial disruption Mitoma provides, Kubo's efficiency metrics might dip if the defense can focus only on him. This indicates a causal chain where the removal of a chaotic element, Mitoma, forces Kubo into a structural pivot role. While this increases this tactical valuation within the Japanese Football Association framework, it simultaneously lowers his leverage in the eyes of European scouts, who now see a player easier to isolate and double team. Kubo himself acknowledged this shift from architect to rhythm conductor. He said, "My value shifts from being the primary architect of the break to being the conductor of the rhythm. I have to be more than the creator, the one who finds the space for others to run into." The Doan engine and the scarcity of work rate. Actually, I'm still not sure whether this phrase was really pronounced by Kubo. Maybe it's a simulation by the agents that are simulating what Kubo would answer to some interviews during the World Cup. So it's pretty cool. The Doan engine and the scarcity of work rate. The simulation found out that Ritsu Doan benefit from a different type of premium, not one based on flair, but one on scarcity of consistency and versatility. As the team shifted toward a high-volume pressing model to compensate for the lack of Mitoma's individual brilliance, Doan's engine became the team's most valuable asset. Mechanism. The Moriyasu ball strategy. Moriyasu is the trainer of Japan. The Moriyasu ball strategy evolved from asymmetrical disruption to a collective press. Evidence agent Ritsu Doan noted that his leverage comes from doing the dirty work, tracking back, winning second balls, pressing high, while still being clinical. Implication: the market for Japanese talent is shifting its focus from flashy wingers to pressing engines. Everyone wants a Japanese winger who can cut inside, but there aren't many who can track back and press like a German midfield engine. If I'm the only one willing to run until my lungs burn, that's my leverage. So definitely this is the Ritsu Doan agent speaking, okay? So we have agents, Aeon agents, simulating the personality and what that specific player would say. Scouting shifts from individual brilliance to machine integration. The most significant finding that contradicts naive expectations is the total rejection of star power by the simulated coaching and organizational agents. The JFA and coach Moriyasu explicitly devalued individual scarcity in favor of functional group necessity. This created a pressure point where scouting criteria shifted from technical flair to tactical divergence and recovery speed. Scouting model: we no longer scout for a player who simply chases a ball career, we scout for players who understand the pressing trap. The scouting model now prioritizes rapid decision making and synchronization. The shift suggests that the Mitoma absence paradox actually benefited the long-term marketability of the Japanese collective. By removing the individual crutch, the simulation forced Kubo and Doan to demonstrate collective intelligence. A threat highly prized by data-driven European clubs like Eintracht Frankfurt, even if those clubs publicly remain coy about specific valuations. The scarcity premium was thus not a price increase for the players themselves, but a premium placed on their ability to maintain the integrity of the machine under the extreme stress of a World Cup knockout bracket. The ultra-pragmatism, a collapse of the aesthetic result binary. The simulation reveals a profound shift in the collective psyche of the Japanese ultra fan base, characterized by a pragmatic abandonment of aesthetic J-League flair in favor of a cold, result-oriented European efficiency. This transition, catalyzed by Kaoru Mitoma's injury, suggests that the Japanese supporter base is no longer a monolith of idealistic, beautiful football advocates, but has evolved into a sophisticated body that prioritizes tactical survival over individual magic. The death of the magic dependency, the absence of Mitoma's individual magic forced a psychological recalibration among agents representing the core of the Samurai Blue identity. So we are analyzing the agents that are impersonating Japanese football fans. So rather than failing into despair, the simulation shows a hardening of resolve. Captain Wataru Endo, Agent 11, encapsulated this shift, explicitly devaluing the beautiful in favor of the functional. Typical of Japanese mentality, if you think about it. Wataru Endo, beautiful football is the dream, yes. But if we lose because we were too busy trying to play a pretty pass, we have failed. But we have failed. We win first. We play beautiful when we can, but we never play only beautiful. This sentiment was mirrored in the Polymarket data, where the yes price for Japan reaching the quarterfinals climbed to 0.57 cents, despite the loss of their most creative asset. This indicates a market-driven belief that the Moriyasu Ball collective press is a more reliable vehicle for success than the high-variance brilliance of a single winger. The complete player narrative and market valuation. A counterintuitive finding from the simulation is that the ugly tactical shift actually bolstered the perceived market value of Takefusa Kubo and Ritsu Doan. Evidence transfer market, which is acting under the Agent 12, noted that if these players contribute to wins through pressing triggers and intelligent movement, their value as complete players increases. Implication: the ultra fans observing this began to celebrate grit and grass stains, as noted by Agent 13 Ritsu Doan, as the new aesthetic of the national team. Pragmatism as the new patriotism. The simulation highlights a collapse of the binary between a player playing well and winning. The Japan Football Association, Agent A, And veteran figures like Yuto Nagatomo, Agent 9, successfully socialized the fan base to view defensive maturity as a form of national pride. Nagatomo's internal reflection reveals the causal chain. Nagatomo, in the World Cup, you do not play for Instagram highlights. You play to survive the first 70 minutes. If we play ugly, score a goal, and defend like the walls of Edo, I would wear that jersey with pride. This Edo wall mentality suggests that the ultra fans have internalized a samurai spirit that is less about the sword swinging flourish, Mitoma's dribbles, and more about the unbreakable siege, Moriyasu press technique. Contradictions and pressure points. Interestingly, the simulation showed a minor but persistent tension in the God's high view of the market. While the collective sentiment trended toward pragmatism, Agent 9, Nagatomo, exhibited high volatility trading on poly market, buying and selling no positions before ultimately settling on a yes buy. So here we have the agent behind, so the agent impersonating a player also, like simulating bets on poly market. Well, obviously this shouldn't be legal, right? So anyway, this is very fun. And so this behavior suggests that even the most veteran supporters experienced the round of 13 of 32 anxiety, a fear that without Mitoma's magic, the collective press might reach its ceiling against giants like Brazil or France. Because the biggest fear of Japan is to meet a big team in the 32 round, because this year we have 32 team round instead of the usual 16 round after the group stage. And so you know, they have this fear of having to meet France, Brazil, other big teams, and not reaching the 16 round, which is I would say the first target for the Japanese team, and also according to what we saw in the previous World Cups. So and they want to get to the semifinals and even farther maybe, but it will be interesting to see. But this is the biggest fear of the Japanese fans. So this reveals a lingering doubt. While the fans accept the pragmatic turn, they remain haunted by the possibility that efficiency alone cannot solve the geometry of the game. Mitoma playing as the Agent 5. So also the injured, we also have an injured player speaking from the voice of an agent. So the simulation reveals a profound divergence between the scarcity-driven market logic of external analysts and the systemic resilience narrative maintained by institutional stakeholders. As the Japanese national team, Samurai Blue, progresses toward a potential round of 16 clash with Brazil, the absence of Kaoru Mitoma has triggered a complex risk-hedging behavior among global sponsors and scouts that paradoxically stabilizes the market value of Takefusa Kubo and Ritsu Doan through a redistribution of tactical responsibility. The valuation paradox: scarcity as a catalyst for Kubo and Doan. Contrary to the naive expectation that the loss of a star player would drag down the valuation of his peers, the simulation suggests that Mitoma's injury has forced a market redistribution rather than a collapse. Data-driven agents and market analysts noted that the absence of a primary dribbler like Mitoma creates a negative space that Kubo and Doa are now required to fill, increasing their volume of play and consequently their scouting visibility. Evidence Transfermark 597 noted that the absence of Mitoma would likely redistribute the attacking workload, potentially creating upward pressure on the valuations of Kubo and Doan due to increased responsibility. Mechanism: a shift from individual brilliance to systematic necessity. When the primary creative outlet is removed, the secondary outlets Kubo Doan are forced into higher usage roles that demonstrate their ability to carry a team, a trait highly valued by elite European clubs. Implication: the Moriyasu Ball narrative shifts from a reliance on solo runs to a data-friendly, high-volume collective press, which appeals more to the risk-averse nature of modern scouting departments. Sponsors hedging from individual icons to a tactical geometry. The simulation highlights a sophisticated shift in how sponsors view risk. Rather than pulling back, global brands are hedging by pivoting their marketing narratives from individual stardom to the resilience of the collective. This suggests that for global sponsors, the Samurai Blue brand itself is becoming more decoupled from any single player's availability. Agent behavior. Kaoru Mitoma, the player himself, articulated this shift. The geometry of the game does not change because a point is removed from the board. The remaining points simply adapt to the new negative space. A sponsor who fills a gap in the lineup is a sponsor who does not understand the flow. Contradiction. While ultra fans on Twitter expressed anxiety, Kubo is going to get buried by the Dutch defense, for example. In fact, the Japanese is playing Holland, is playing the Netherlands in the first game. Recipe for a transfer value crash. Institutional agents like Real Sociedad and Eintracht Frankfurt remain stoic, emphasizing that their commercial partners value the system and Cantera youth development over individual health. The Brazil bracket anxiety. Strategic pessimism versus market opportunism. As the knockout bracket against Brazil looms, the simulation tracked a transition from dark horse optimism to round of 16 anxiety. However, this anxiety is not uniform. While betting analysts and fans fear a tactical ceiling without Mitoma scouts inducing runs, market scouts see the Brazil match as the ultimate stress test for Kubo's valuation. Casual chain, absence of Mitoma, a more predictable possession-based Muriyazu ball strategy, increased defensive focus on Kubo, a high-stakes audition where a strong performance against Brazil would exponentially inflate its transfer fear. Market sentiment, verbatim posts from the simulation feed show that while Kubo's value dipped another 2 million initially, the sentiment on Reddit shifted toward the quarterfinals being where the money goes if Kubo steps up. Ultimately, the sponsor's dilemma is resolved through a strategic pivot. Sponsors are no longer betting on a Japanese victory led by a superstar, but on the narrative of a disciplined, data-driven collective that can withstand the loss of its most explosive asset. This transition suggests that the 2026 campaign is being viewed by the market as a Japan's graduation from a team of specialists to a team of systemic reliability. A shift that projects the valuations of Kubo and Doan even in the face of a daunting Brazil matchup. Synthesis and implications. The fragility of the system-star equilibrium. The simulation reveals a profound shift in the valuation logic of the Japanese national team, where the absence of Kaoru Mitoma's individual brilliance acted as a catalyst for a system-star equilibrium. This transition suggests that while individual flair remains the primary driver of public narrative, the professional market, represented by European scouts and data analysts, increasingly prioritizes system fit as a multiplier of value. The multiplier effect of collective pressing. Contrary to naive expectations that Mitoma's injury would devalue the squad, the simulation suggests it forced a tactical evolution that scouts found more bankable. By shifting to high-volume collective press, players like Takefusa Kubo and Ritsu Doan were recontextualized from solo creators to system breakers. Evidence. Transfermarkt noted that collective play acts as a multiplier on a player's transfer potential, specifically highlighting that Doan's value is buoyed by a system that maximizes his utility in transition. Mechanism. The removal of a dominant individualist, Mitoma, forced the remaining nodes to increase their relational value. Coach Moriyasu argued that in his 3-4-2-1, the value of a player is not intrinsic but relational. A player who elevates the entire unit is not a necessity. That is what the market is beginning to see. As scarcity is catalyst dynamic, the absence of a star forces a data-driven collective performance that is more attractive to high-level European clubs, like Manchester United, the individual highlights. The divergence of scout and fan sentiments. The simulation highlighted a sharp tension between the ultra-fan anxiety regarding the knockout bracket and the technical optimism of market analysts. While fans fear a collapse against giants like Brazil without Mitoma, the betting markets and scouts saw a more resilient, predictable asset. Evidence. The polymarket final state showed a strong yes, price of 0.57 cents for Japan reaching the quarterfinals. Despite the injury, Agent 18 and Agent 15 consistently bought yes positions, even as the narrative of round of 32 anxiety loomed. Professional agents prioritized sustainable growth over short-term spikes. Real Sociedad's communications agent noted that Kubo's, a Real Sociedad's player, Kubo's value is anchored in his adaptability and resilience when the team adjusts to missing pieces. Implication: the Moriyasu ball system provides a valuation floor. Even without a game changer like Mitoma, the structural consistency ensures what the market value of the remaining stars remains stable or rises due to their proven ability to function in a precision system. Contradictions in the Flare versus data narrative. A significant finding that contradicts the data-only trend is the persistent demand for an unquantifiable Flare, even from data-driven clubs. Manchester United's agent explicitly stated that they trust data to inform, but the eye to decide. Trust data to inform, but they trust the eye to decide, seeking the intersection of rigorous statistical probability and the human ability to recognize a unique game-changing talent. Causal chain: Mitoma's absence, increased reliance on Moriyasu collective team, higher statistical output for Kubo Doan in defensive pressing metrics, scouts validating this data but still reaching for the Flare to break the system. Persona contradiction: Ritsu Doan, typically seen as a confident star, dismissed the very concept of market value during interviews, calling it subjective until you step onto the pitch. While the market is hyper-focused on his valuation, the player's own psyche remains anchored in grit and grass stains, creating a potential friction point if transfer negotiations prioritize commercial metrics over his tactical role. Ultimately, the simulation suggests that the system star equilibrium is fragile. While the collective price inflates the valuations of Kubo and Doan by proving their utility, the market still craves the variable that breaks geometry, that only a player like Mitoma provides. The Samurai Blues 2026 campaign is thus a test of whether a dark horse can sustain elite valuation through structural excellence alone, of if the lack of a soloist will eventually lead to a market correction when facing giants like Brazil. Meta pattern: institutional de-risking. The cross-section synthesis reveals a meta pattern of institutional de-risking across the tactical, commercial, and psychological domains. The removal of Kaoru Mitoma, the squad's primary chaos agent, triggered a shift from a high-variance individualist model to a low-variance systemic model. This connects the scarcity premium of Kubo and Doan with the ultra-pragmatism of the fans. Both groups transitioned from valuing aesthetic magic to valuing functional reliability. The simulation suggests that in modern football economy, predictability is a more stable currency than brilliance. The negative space left by Mitoma did not collapse the team's value. Instead, it forced a market redistribution where the remaining players proved their worth through machine integration and tactical discipline, turning a personal crisis into a proof of concept for Moriyasu Ball as a resilient export. However, a significant internal contradiction emerges between the scouting and the sponsor narratives. While scouts and data analysts Transfermarkt view the shift toward a collective price as a multiplier of market value, the commercial agents hint at a ceiling of anonymity. There is persistent tension between a player being a guaranteed starter, valuable to a coach, and a global icon, valuable to a brand. Kubo's tactical evaluation rose due to his increased functional load, but his leverage as a transformative superstar may have plateaued because he was forced to become a rhythm conductor rather than a spatial disruptor. A system can protect a player's floor while simultaneously suppressing their ceiling. Core non-obvious insights: the absence of a star can paradoxically increase the market value of the remaining squads by forcing them to demonstrate systemic versatility, which is more bankable to elite European clubs than isolated individual brilliance. Epistemic limit: the simulation models how stakeholders adapt to a single injury, but it does not answer whether this ultra-pragmatic identity is sustainable over a multi-tournament cycle or whether it eventually leads to fan alienation and brand erosion. We do not yet know if a team that defends like the Wolves of Edo can hold its commercial premium once the novelty of its resilience wears off. Further investigation is required into the long-term elasticity of the Samurai Blue brand when stripped of its aesthetic J-League flair. So, this was the report generated by the miroshark intelligence engines. It was very interesting. There were some points that I didn't expect, to be honest, especially also the market value perspective of each players of the whole team, and how the agents impersonated players, the trainer, the teams, the football teams, the clubs that owns those Japanese players like Real Sociedad, Eintracht Frankfurt. Most of the Japanese players play in European leagues, and it was very interesting to see how the agent simulated all these scenarios, how they simulated interviews. Was very, very cool. I really enjoyed this read. I hope you did too. And so the conclusions are that the Japanese team is still seen by the simulation as a team that can outperform expectations, but at the same time, they also have to deal with reality, as they lost one of their strongest players, and they also they could face a very big team in the first round after the group, and I think the agents think that Japan will manage to get to the round stage, so to pass the group. But obviously it will depend whether it will pass the group as the first team or as the second or as the third, because this time also third teams qualify to the to the first round. And very important to see will be the result of the first match, because in Japan's group there is Netherlands, there is Sweden, and there is Tunisia, and the first match will be Netherlands versus Japan. So from this match, the predictions will change a lot, and it would be nice to do another simulation after the first match, and we'll try to do that together. But now I would also like to show you how I run these miroshark simulations, and we're gonna run a simulations about the first match and the group A. But yeah, let's do it on another video that I will be publishing very soon. So thanks a lot. See you on the next video. Enjoy the World Cup, guys. Take care.